Think for yourself. Question authority.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Now, Nintendo just had their first Nintendo Direct in almost a year and a half, so we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about Nintendo Furukawa, president of Nintendo, and his continued comments on new hardware for Nintendo, and of course the Switch and Switch hardware and possible new variants of the Switch. He keeps talking about it over and over and over again in the past year. And it continues now with a new interview with Nikkei, which of course was the one we talked about before, which reported on new Switch hardware coming in the not too distant future back in 2019. The hints from Nintendo continue to happen over and over and over again about them continually talking about new hardware as these investors meetings continue to take place. In fact, in 2020, Furukawa talked about how Nintendo was working on cutting edge technology. And they talked about various aspects of how they're going to improve their mobile technology going forward. And they seem to be continually talking about this. And they actually are approving these questions to be made known publicly. Because these are not, random questions that these investors are asking. These are pre-planned and pre-approved by Nintendo to share publicly. So every time that you see Nintendo talking about new hardware, this is on purpose. This is something you got to keep well in mind. Thinking about Nintendo releasing a new Switch in 2021 this year when all these things are taking place, even though they're being coy about it and saying they have no plans right now or soon, the fact that they keep talking about hardware is extremely telling. So what exactly did Furukawa say in his interview with Nikkei? Well, Nikkei talked about new hardware. They keep talking about new hardware. So like I said, the question remains, why are they doing this consistently? Anyway, let's take a look at what Furukawa said in this interview with Nikkei. Speaking in a Nikkei interview, Shintaro Furukawa said that any successor to the Nintendo Switch must be able to offer consumers new forms of entertainment. Furukawa said Nintendo doesn't have a specific time frame in mind for hardware development. Rather, it is constantly researching technology in a bid to create new experiences. The hardware and software development teams are in the same building, communicating closely and thinking about how we can propose new forms of entertainment. In order to create a piece of hardware, we have to do a lot of preparation several years in advance. So we are working without stopping. In the end, the deciding factor in whether or not to commercialize a product is whether it can create a new experience. Then he goes on to say something that he's been saying for the past year, which is kind of strange, but he says, "We always say that we are in the middle of Switch's life cycle, and since one piece of hardware can be used to play both stationary and portable games, we can offer a wide variety of software for this purpose," Furukawa said. The life cycle can still be extended. So here we have this interview with Nikkei talking about new hardware, and I have to say, if the Nintendo Switch is not getting an upgraded Switch soon, and they keep talking about new hardware consistently for the past year, why are they continually approving these questions and these answers to be made public about new hardware, new technology, new experiences? Why do they keep doing this? Why bother doing that if new hardware is not coming soon? That's the good question that I want to ask you guys. Maybe you guys have an idea yourself, but they continually talk about new hardware consistently, yet they do not talk about or show new games coming that are previously announced, like Breath of the Wild 2 or Metroid Prime 4 or Bayonetta 3, for example. But they will continue to talk about new hardware, new ideas, cutting edge technology, finding a way to save battery life, things like that. They keep talking about this stuff over and over and over again for the past year, guys. So something's going on here with Nintendo. They keep saying the Switch is in its midlife cycle, yet they keep talking about brand new hardware, and they keep talking about how they're going to not release a new console anytime soon, but they're not really denying it for this year either. So there's some interesting disparities going on here, because normally if a console was not going to have any type of upgrade coming up anytime soon, there'd be no reason for Nintendo to continually talk about new hardware and new technologies every single time they have a meeting. Makes no sense at all to do that if your current piece of hardware is fulfilling all the needs that you want as far as a game developer is concerned and hardware manufacturer is concerned for Nintendo. So since they continue to do this consistently, there's no reason to believe at this point that they will not release a new, more powerful Switch this year, seeing that they're giving us all the signs in the world that they are working on hardware that's ready to be announced. So of course, in a roundabout way, that's pretty much a heads up to just be on the lookout for when Nintendo's going to drop this announcement for this new Switch. They obviously are working on brand new hardware. They made it very clear, and there's no time range or no time limit as far as when they're going to announce it. They're simply going to drop it whenever they want to. And this ties in with the Nintendo Direct that we just had, and of course that was the first one we've had in a year and a half. Now, fans, of course, some of them are disappointed. You can't make every fan happy with every Nintendo Direct. This Nintendo Direct focused on some things, of course, that didn't really interest me as a fan. I was hoping for something of Metroid. Of course, they weren't going to show that just yet. And I hoped they were going to show Breath of the Wild 2, which they didn't show. Instead, they showed Skyward Sword HD, which is a Wii port with basically no upgrades to the visuals at all. It was just the same exact game in HD with its sword motions mapped to the analog stick with its motions. So that's what they did for Skyward Sword, and of course they're charging full price for that. Nintendo can get away with it. They've proven it. People will buy it. It is what it is. And of course they announced Splatoon 3, which shouldn't really come as a surprise to many people because that game most likely was in development shortly after Splatoon 2 came out, and they've been working on it off and on probably for the past few years. That game is very successful, and there was always going to be a Splatoon 3. There's no doubt about it. It looks like that series will be updated more often than, say, like a Mario Kart. Of course, Nintendo is pushing towards March 31st, the end of the fiscal year. So this February Direct, which came out of nowhere, by the way, nobody expected it. There were no rumors about it. There was nothing about this Direct beforehand. I don't think the usual suspects who rumor Directs were really expecting this Direct to happen. They may have been waiting a little bit later. So Nintendo had to pull some, things out here and put some information out, because obviously if they were planning on releasing a new Switch or planning on announcing a new Switch after March 31st of this year to get their plans rolling for that console, then there was no way they were going to sit there and do nothing, which of course they could have, but most likely they were not going to be doing nothing for the entire first 4 months of 2021, after also doing nothing as far as Nintendo Directs, full General Directs in 2020. No General Directs in 2020 at all. So they had to do something. You could just tell they absolutely had to have some type of information and game drop, of new games for the Switch, a full Nintendo Direct. They did that, and they had a pretty good show for what it was, for the first half of 2021. So going forward, they announced Mario Golf and Splatoon 3. Those were the only new first-party games they announced. The rest were third-party games and HD ports, remasters, things like that. So the big heavy hitters, all these games we've been waiting on forever: Metroid Prime 4, Breath of the Wild 2, a Metroid Prime trilogy, which we know is going to happen, regardless of what people think, it's going to happen. We know that. If they're going to release Metroid Prime 4, we know that already. It's not even a question. Where are these games? Where are these impressive looking games from Retro Studios? We haven't seen anything from Retro Studios brand new since the Wii U, right? Nothing brand new at all since Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. So where are these games? Where is the content for the future? Where are the big hitters? Well, they're coming up later. So not before March 31st though, obviously. Nintendo made that very clear. So they're going to push through until the end of March 31st. But then after that, when April 1st hits, then we're going to see exactly what Nintendo's real plans are for the future. Right now, they are just, looking right in front of them, and that's it. And their statements about new hardware, guys, it's extremely fishy right now. Very fishy. You have to admit. They keep talking about new hardware over and over and over again, and they won't stop talking about it. They're not talking about the current Switch and how, they're, impressed with the current hardware for the Switch and how it's doing for them. They aren't talking about that at all. In fact, they're talking just about new hardware in these interviews. So something's up, and we're going to wait and see what happens. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section. Are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing? The same irregularities with how Nintendo is talking about new hardware seemingly all the time now in these interviews with their president, Furukawa, and they're still holding back the big games that we want to see: Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, Bayonetta 3, but they will talk about new hardware, even though they say, well, we got nothing announced anytime soon, but they still keep talking about new hardware and new technology over and over and over again. Something's got to give. Alright guys, if you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a great day.